Adventurers assemble. In the universe of Earth's sister planet Aston, inhabited by the most dangerous creatures, a group of deportees are about to challenge the very foundations of their prison. Are you ready to join the rebellion and fight alongside werewolves, demons and vampires? Let's embark on the journey of Uprising and see where this interstellar journey will take us. This is the first part of Chain of Prophecy, Aston Uprising. Thank you very much for your likes and subscriptions. You can leave your comments in the comment area. The Revolt, the year 2525. Very few humans inhabit the Earth. Over time, mythical creatures came out of hiding. Werewolves, demons, vampires, treefolk, mermaids, and all manner of others lived together in harmony. For those who were deemed too dangerous to live in society, a prison was created on Earth's sister planet 𝐊𝐢𝐧𝐼, the universe's most secure prison. Here lived those who had committed the most heinous of crimes. From every species at any age. Most have a reason of being there, others don't. Castaways with no families other than each other. They live amongst the criminals, having no clue about what a normal life is. Growing up in the prison only to be forced into the military at the age of 18. But what if a group of prisoners want to change that? What if the castaways decide that they too deserve equal rights? Right to live free, without a ticking time bomb hanging over their heads? What happens if they decide this? Prologue. Muffling a groan, I hesitantly opened my eyes and was greeted by the pitch black of the middle of the night. My clothes stuck to me, drenched with sweat as I soundlessly shuffle out of my bed and out into the dining hall. My feet take me where I need to go on autopilot. Despite the darkness, my head throbs, threatening to burst as I stumble slightly, losing my sense of balance. A few more steps, I can do this. I regain my balance and forge on, the throbbing in my head increasing. I reach the dorm for the vampires and fumble at the knocker. I open the door and walk zombie-like into their dorm. Most of the vampires would be awake at this time. Nobody pays me any mind as I make my way to the black room. After what seemed like an age, I reach there and fall into the bed. Even though the vampires mostly stayed up all night, they knew how to sleep comfortably. My head throbbed further as I slipped in and out of consciousness. It was always like this, never has it been painless. I clutched my stomach in agony, as it felt like it was being ripped apart. A moan slips out and tears stream down my face uncontrollably. It has never ever been this bad. I scream as ripples of pain shoot through me. These nightmares always came with some pain. That I was used to this was a whole different level. I could just be dying. This room was pitch black. It was comfortable, but one thing it was not was soundproof. I'm pretty sure everyone in the whole building has heard me by now. Everyone knew I had nightmares, but only one other knew them for what they really are. If only they were really nightmares, I guess. In some sense, they could still be classed as nightmares. They were terrifyingly confusing and mainly happened at night. My thoughts scramble, as once again a crushing pain engulfs my body slowly, building up the pressure. I continue screaming, waiting. No wishing for any relief, even if that relief was death. Just as it seemed like my body would combust, the pain dissipated as suddenly as it came, leaving me with the familiar floating feeling. Relief washed through me. It was over. The pain was over. I felt myself being hurtled to who knows where. In the speed of light, my injuries seemed non-existent. The wind flowing through my hair carefree. I arrived on land that seemed familiar. Certainly it looked familiar. Thick black smog filled the air, only allowing me to see the outlines of everything. I was being called for in the distance, but the voice calling me was fading, moving further and further away. There was heat surrounding me, and yet it was not touching me. I was safe. With a start, I awake. Something big was going to happen, and it was going to happen soon. When I moaned as I awoke, suddenly startlingly aware of my aching body. I knew as soon as I had opened my eyes I wasn't in the same room I had fallen asleep in. For one thing, there was light here. My body needed to stretch, but seeing as I was in this much pain just by laying still, moving was not a good idea. Cracking open my eyes further, I allowed the light to filter through slowly. Unwilling to be blinded by it, "Jack," I mumbled. Knowing that he would be here. "Yeah," came the sleepy reply. "What happened?" "You really don't know?" he asked, drilly a little. "Why am I here when I found you? You were bleeding. A healer came to check up on you not so long ago. You need to rest. You know I'll be okay soon. Rest," he ordered gruffly, ignoring my comment. I could hear the creaking of a chair as he got up and then saw his shadow leave the room. The next day, I felt fine, like I was ready to take on the world. Not that the world we were currently living on was much of a world, it being a planet smaller than Earth but bigger than Pluto. 𝐻𝐸 is a barren planet. No life grew on it, and the only life that lived on it was us. The prisoner's life in this prison was all I knew. It was all I remembered. I staggered out of my room. As the only human in the prison, I was the only one who got my own room. The hall was set for lunch. Long ago we had our lunch pre-made for us from Earth. Well, those of us who ate lunch did, but now, after much complaining, we get to make our own lunch. Today was the 𝐻𝐸's turn, and it smelt like pasta. My stomach grumbled at the thought of food, and I quickly made my way to my table, knowing that Jack would get food for me. After all, isn't that what best friends are for? I sat with the demons, where a steaming bowl of spaghetti faced me, Jack sitting by my side. Other than me, the only human, the demons were the second smallest population in the prison. "How are you feeling?" Jack asks. "Good," I mumble, loading my fork with food. "Hungry?" He chuckles, knowing it was pointless to talk to me while I was eating. Begins eating himself. "The tree guys wanted to see you." "No idea what about." "You should go see them now," he orders. Out of the blue, why the sudden rush? I question. Curiosity piqued. He never usually acted like this. "Anna, fine." I leave without finishing the food on my plate, storming away from him. Why did he have to be so moody? Clearly, someone woke up on the wrong side of the bed this morning. I walked to the furthest part of the hall, the north wing, where the tree folk and the fae and the Immerse lived. I loved this part of the prison. It was rather beautiful. It made you feel as if you'd entered a new world. Of course, every wing of the prison was adapted to the natural habitats of the creatures that lived there. But none were transformed as much as this was. It was a beautiful forest, full of lush green trees and all sorts of foliage and flowers. A natural waterfall and pond were also among the delights that the north wind boasted. If there was anywhere to go when you needed peace, you could go here. I wondered what the tree folk would want. They rarely wanted anything. They were such peaceful people. So mellow. I walked down the central lane, which would lead me to Thaddeus, my main connection to the tree folk. I guess they considered him as their leader, which in a sense he was. Just like I was the mediator between everyone, it was an unspoken agreement to which I had no choice in the matter. I liked this job, if you could call it that. It involved going around to every wing and hanging out with all sorts of people. Just as I was about to walk into their meeting room unannounced, because I'm cool like that, I noticed that the door was ajar and voices, which were getting increasingly angry, were drifting out. He said we must not tell her, and as much as I do not like it, this time we have to listen to him. He has what we need, Thad was saying. But she should know. This is an integral part of the plan. She must know. "Silence, nymph," Thad roared. So loud I actually took a step back. I had never heard him raise his voice, let alone shout. "Clearly, you do not wish to see our plan completed in its entirety. You do not understand the severity of the situation. No, it is you who do not. I am the one without which you cannot go on. Leave. I don't want to talk to you at present. Your ego has been inflated with your ignorance. We shall talk when your head is back on 𝐻𝐸 and is no longer stuck in the clouds." Damn, she was going to come out. Where was I supposed to hide? I didn't want them to know that I was eavesdropping. Well, it was unintentional eavesdropping. I just happened to be at the right place at the right time in order to hear that there was something going on and everybody was hiding it from me. It's ridiculous, honestly. I hear footsteps coming closer, and with all the stealth I can muster, I retreat down the corridor a little, slowly walking back up to the door, making it seem like I was walking there for the first time. Both the nymph and a weary Thad exit the room. I've never seen the nymph around before, which is odd because we only have a handful of nymphs at the prison, so each were easily recognizable. I smile at both of them, in greeting, and walk straight into the meeting room. I make myself comfortable and hear the door close behind me. A cup of steaming peppermint tea is placed in front of me. "How much of that conversation did you hear?" "What conversation?" I ask as innocently as possible. "Anna, come on, truly. I have no idea what you're talking about. I was just told you'd like to talk to me." "By whom?" Thad asked, confused, as if he didn't know what I was talking about. I took my time answering his question, instead taking a sip of tea. while thinking of the likelihood that Jack had lied to me to get rid of me. As much as I didn't want to think that he had, it was rather transparent that he did, Jack, I say, looking at his reaction carefully, which morphs into something of understanding. Yes. I recall now I wanted to talk about how you are, and to offer you some days of relaxation here. He was lying, that much was obvious. I sipped the rest of my tea slowly. Good tea should never be allowed to be wasted. Without replying, it was more than obvious that at least Thad, the nymph, and Jack were hiding something. Now the question, or rather questions that needed to be asked, were what are they hiding? And how many other knew about it in the prison? But more importantly, how was I going to find out about it? Tr2. I left Thad with a sound that was supposed to be goodbye but just ended up sounding like a grunt. Truthfully, I'm a little hurt. Perhaps more than a little. These were the people I had grown up with, and yet they were hiding something from me. I left the wing with little inclination of what to do for the rest of the day. All I did know was that I didn't want to talk to Jack, or see him for that matter, so I went to the werewolves, who I know will always help me forget my problems. The werewolves are pretty cool. Sure, they're temperamental, incredibly hot-headed and way too possessive for my liking, but they're also hella loyal and great lovers of food, fun and training, which is something we have in common. The pack here isn't huge, but it's of a pretty modest sizing with a couple of mate pairings but mainly singles. As soon as I enter their wing, I'm greeted by a shout from their beta, Johnson, in the middle of a training session. The werewolves wing was split into a living area and a huge forest for running and training. It was here that you could get the best view of the stars at night than in any other place in the prison. I joined the training session immediately, working up a sweat as Johnson pushed me further to duck faster, punch harder. My strength was nothing compared to his, and I'll probably never win a match against him, but that's cool with me. By the time he lets me go, I'm exhausted, staggering into the pack house for a quick shower, then allowing myself to blissfully fall asleep. I realize, as soon as I wake up, that I've never slept over in the werewolf wing before, or any other wing really other than the vampire one, but that's a different story altogether. Alpha Chris, it seems, took this as a pretty big deal and had their cooks to throw a huge breakfast feast in my honor, which was really pretty sweet. That was how half an hour later I was surrounded by the normal gang while food was being heaped onto my plate, and I was unable to say anything as they just kept adding more. These werewolves with their fast metabolisms, thinking everyone can eat like them 5 meals a day and snacks. I was in for such a big treat. It took me 2 hours to finish every last morsel on my plate. That included time for walking around and making space for more food to fit. Whenever I complained, I just got told I was being a wimp, which in this scenario I am totally okay with. Sauntering out of their wing, feeling much better than when I had entered, I was oblivious to my surroundings, intending to get back to my room and read all day. Today was going to be awesome, I could feel it. Anna, Jack all but growled. Or maybe this day wasn't going to be as awesome as I thought. Why did you spend the night with them? Oh, so now you want to know me, I asked, indignant, attempting to walk past him. It's not like that, really. So why don't you tell me what the big secret is? Honestly, there's nothing to. So first you don't want to say, and now you're lying to me. I thought we were friends, I say, my voice betraying me a little by breaking slightly. He stays silent and I use it as an excuse to get past him. By the time I reach my room, I feel the hot tears I've been trying to control leak out. Yeah, there's nothing like having your best friend lie to your face about something to get you to cry. Once the tears are under control, I decide that today was going to be awesome, and it was also going to be one of those days where I stay in my room all day. I reread the same books I had taken out last week, wishing that I had changed them when the library was open a few days back rather than being lazy. I made myself get lost in their world so I wouldn't have to deal with mine. I wouldn't have to deal problems, answers to which were written a couple of 100 pages into the story. I was just finishing the incredibly riveting vintage classic, The Bone Collector, a story that never seemed to get boring no matter how many times you've read it. I'll have to request the other books in the series. Very fascinating. Who is it? I call, in response to the knock on my door. Instead of answering, of course, Jack just walks in like it's okay to do that. Well, it's not. Especially not when you're keeping secrets from your supposed best friend. I keep silent as I watch him enter my room. You didn't come to dinner today, he states. I know it's his way of trying to show he cares, trying to reach out, but frankly, I know I didn't go to dinner. Shouldn't he be telling me what I want to know instead? And I reply curtly, Jesus, look, Anna. Cut me some slack, please. Why? I just don't want you to get hurt. That's why nobody's saying anything. I swear this is for your own safety. Just because I'm human does not mean I'm weak. I never said that. What I'm trying to say is if anything ever happened to you, I'd never forgive myself, don't you see? I'm trying not to get you hurt, don't you see? I won't get hurt. I'll be perfectly fine, but you're hurting me more by trying to protect me. Anna, no, I'll prove it, okay, Jack? I'll prove it to you and everyone else that I'm not weak just because I'm a human. I'm not some overly emotional girl who can't handle things. I'm not someone who's going to give up when things get a little crazy. I thought you of all people would know that. You don't need to prove anything, I promise you. I'll tell you soon, okay? Soon as in tomorrow or the day after, or soon as in when it's over. Well, I was definitely acting like spoilt brat today, wasn't I? You know what, forget it, tell me whenever, just go. I suddenly feel so deflated of energy. Like I couldn't deal with this crap anymore. Maybe I was weaker, it had only been a few days and yet I couldn't take the heat. Well, that's ridiculous. I for one know that I'm not weak, I just have a zero tolerance to bullshit. That leaves me weak, I think. With great reluctance he leaves and I lay there thinking about how life would be so much different if I didn't live in prison. If I had a normal family back on Earth. It was times like these where I wondered who my family were and why they gave me up. Did I have siblings? Did they ever hold me? Did they even name me? That gets me the most. You bring a child into this world, and yet you don't even have the courtesy to name your child. To hold your child. Before I know it, I'm crying, and it's not the elegant type of crying where a few tears slip down your cheek daintily and you sniffle a little. No, I'm doing the blowing my nose noisily. Full out sobbing sort of crying, and never since that moment have I ever felt more alone. I spend the next day wallowing. But I put in a request for the rest of the Jeffrey Deaver collection, and by midday the books had been delivered to my room. I read to get lost in a world that I don't want to be a part of anymore. To forget. I'm not one that readily delves into a strop whenever life doesn't go my way. But this I just don't seem to have the energy to bother. Like the life's been sucked out of me, and even functioning on the most basic level is so draining. I read through the books. Over the next few days with little interruptions and even less food breaks. After finishing my 4th book in 2 days, I left my room to get some provisions. It was quite late at night, so thankfully everyone would be asleep. Walking out into the hall, I tread quietly towards the kitchen, my bare feet barely making any sound. As I was reheating the leftovers from during the day, I heard a few voices. You know what the prophecy said? There's only one way, but shouldn't she know? If she's in the prophecy, no. You don't know her, she won't take a back seat when she's found out. That's why everything needs to be done before we tell her. I ducked into an empty kitchen cabinet as the voices drew nearer, careful to allow a small gap that'll help me get back out again. They didn't enter the kitchen but continued to walk right past. I didn't get to hear any more of their conversation, but that was okay with me. I had heard enough of prophecy, and what were they talking about? My mind was buzzing with all these questions that kept arising. My journey back to my room a complete blur. I ate my food on autopilot while trying and failing to understand what they could possibly be talking about. Laying in bed, expecting nothing more than my brain deciding to dredge up every possibility that what I've overheard could mean. Oh, the joy of having an overactive imagination. Instead, I was pleasantly surprised to find myself slowly drifting to sleep, more peacefully than I have in a long time. I feel myself being pulled somewhere, and I know instantaneously that a dream was coming. I hope this dream was good to me. Searing pain across my abdomen dashed my hopes immediately. I hear a long groan, probably my own, but am otherwise unable to move. The feeling of being hurtled further away only grows stronger and the pain more intense. And then suddenly I can hear nothing, see nothing, feel nothing. It comes to me in a flash of light. A semi-familiar face pops up in front of my eyes. I know that face. Princess, the voice croons. In the distance, you need to know. You are the prophecy. Another flash of the same semi-familiar face, lingering in front of me this time. And now I know who it is. I know that I need to meet this person. And yet I do not know at the same time. It's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't get it out. With a second burst of light and pain that seems to ebb through my veins, I awake. My head throbbing, my eyes barely able to open. Anna. A voice questions, Anna, are you okay? It comes closer and someone slips into my bed, pulling me closer. My response comes out as a muffled groan. They pull me closer still, mumbling something as my body shuts down and I black out. The next morning I can barely open my eyes. My head was hurting that bad. I snuggle closer to whoever is laying next to me, presuming it's Jack, wishing this pain could go away already. Nothing else hurt, thankfully. How are you feeling? He asks, whispering into my ear like shit. I mumble. My head hurts so bad. I'll send someone to get the healer, thanks. I press my head against his chest, momentary relief flooding through me. Then all too soon the pain returns in full force. Wait, it just occurs to me, how did you know? Who didn't know? Everyone heard, Anna. You were screaming so loud I never realized. Sorry. Nothing to be sorry for, you can't control it. It's getting worse, isn't it? He asks, his voice barely audible. Afraid I don't know. I hope not. I can't even remember what it was about. I fall back asleep. A welcome relief from the pain. Flashes of my previous night's dream come back to me as I sleep now, but I can't feel anything. A face. That face, one that I feel I know and yet don't for some reason. As soon as I see it, I remember his words. I need to know about what? And what's all this about me being a prophecy? Sometimes my dreams were about events concerning what had just happened to me, and sometimes they were indecipherable and made no sense to me until after something had happened. I guess if I could remember what I was doing before I fell asleep, it may help me think about what the dream meant and who was in my dream. So what was I doing? Well, I was hungry, right? So I went into the kitchen and was making some food, or reheating or whatever, and then what? Oh wait, I had someone talking about a her. Familiar too, and that it was too dangerous for the her to know yet. I'm sure someone else was telling me about too much danger. Jack. Let's just presume that Jack was telling someone that it was too dangerous for me, no, and that he didn't want me to get hurt. Right then whoever he was telling didn't agree. Or did they know? They didn't. They argued that I should know if I was involved in the prophecy. Now it makes sense. I need to know what's going on, despite telling Jack that he could tell me whenever. According to my dream, I wasn't just part of the prophecy, I am the prophecy. And everyone knows that if you want to know about a prophecy, there's only one place to go. 𝐊𝐢 Felix, that's who I needed to see. Although whether or not he was the same guy from my dream would be another matter entirely. I don't even think that I've ever met him before, let alone seen his face. He, too, was at the prison, but not on the main floor where all the wings are. His accommodation was somewhere else. Here but not here. I think that's partly because of his powers, which were incredibly mysterious, and everything that was known was complete speculation with a healthy dose of rumors. Right now I was barely able to keep my eyes open for an extended period of time, let alone find out about how to visit Felix, with as little people knowing as possible. I'm sure if Jack were to find out, he'd come up with a list of 1,000 reason why I shouldn't go, and then proceed to do everything in his power to stop me. I hear the door opening and Jack mumbling a greeting. He moves away and I know that it's the healer. I feel a cool salve being spread across my forehead, and instantly the pain starts to become numb. A cool cloth being placed on my eyes that helps the burning go away. Slowly, I fall back to sleep, where for once in a very long time I don't have any dreams. My sleep was the best I'd had for a very, very long time. I awoke well rested and refreshed, not like I had just lost a fight with an ogre and barely lived to tell the tale. A kid. I wouldn't be able to fight an ogre even if I wanted to. Firstly, they're notoriously hard to find. There wasn't one on 𝐻𝐻 and probably on a few left on Earth. Secondly, aside from being hard to find, there's supposedly a law to protect the ogres as they were on the verge of being extinct. Yes, the royals may have imprisoned a bunch of innocent kids in another planet with criminals from Earth for no apparent reason, but we have to protect the ogres. As if they aren't big enough to protect themselves. I tried not to think about it. The last thing I wanted was to get all stressed out about some stupid royals, who were clearly not doing their job properly on a completely different planet. For now the main aim is to survive on this one, and a part of survival is knowing everything. If you know about something, nobody can use it against you. As casually as possible I walked toward the office, where the few guards of this place worked. They ensured security was never breached. Every wing was maintained and everything we needed was provided, only the basics of course. It was here you could ask for requests to see Felix, or for more books in the library. Extra stuff in your wing, whatever really. I realize, asking for requests to see Felix seems a little odd. And the truth is that it is odd. It's just from what I've heard Felix is a stay-to-himself kind of guy. He doesn't like being disturbed by anyone, so not even the guards check on him, and if you want to disturb him, you've got to ask honestly. I don't even know what he's doing here. If it was me, I'd have left long ago. He clearly seems like the kind of guy who you wouldn't want to get on the bad side of. But hey, what's so wrong with going to see the most dangerous guy in prison? I put in my request quickly, knowing that if I'm lucky I'll get a reply within the week, and if I'm not I may never get one. I really don't want Jack to catch me. I'm pretty sure he'll put me in hospital just to ensure I don't get to go. Or lace my tea with some sleeping draft. Jack's such an awesome best friend like that. I cook up a late breakfast for myself and a few other of the Fae that are hanging out in the kitchen as I try to forget about my upcoming potential demise, either from Jack or Felix, whichever could do the job. I make a full English breakfast. Although really I have no idea what English is, it may just be an Earth thing. Whatever English meant, it certainly made for a yummy breakfast. Sausage, hash browns, toast, bacon, mushrooms, and anything else awesome you could think of. I liked the Fae, they were pretty cool. One in particular, Layla, was pretty close to me. If I was to name my second best friend, it would be her for sure. I was glad to be talking to them. They were awesome, and with all the drama as of late, I hadn't had a chance to visit. The Fae had their own wing. It was amazingly contrasted, the most diverse of all the wings. As various Fae thrived more in different climates and conditions, the wing had been created to ensure that all of them had what they need to survive. Others were more neutral and could blend in to live in any place, anytime. I loved how some Fae were seasonal, and so in their wing the seasons were represented too. Summer, winter were all amazing. 𝐿𝐷𝐤 doesn't have seasons, so before I had no idea what they were. The sky is either yellow or black. Nothing in between, and who knows what the wind feels like. I've never felt it before. All I know of seasons is that one is hot and the other is cold. Does Earth even have seasons? I have no idea. The history of the Earth is great, this much I know. My race, the humans, were fickle and selfish and exploited the Earth for money until, of course, the werewolves, Fae, tree folk, vampires came out and saved them. There was a war. But there always was with humans. Many were dying anyway. Poverty was widespread and nutritious food was sparse and mainly for the rich. With so many wars on already, humans against humans, people were dying in their 100,000s daily. Tragic, really. One human against another for some object that was going to be of little benefit. Oil was a big thing. Although the only oil I've seen is cooking oil, so I don't really know what the fuss was about. That's history for you. Leaders going crazy with power, or killing people in the name of honor, to protect their country or just because they could. Stupid people thinking it was okay to kill others because they didn't have the same color skin, the same religion, weren't born in the same country, whatever. Stupid reasons. Diversity is amazing. They should have embraced it while they could. And now, there are less than 1 million humans on Earth, which is an inflated number really, as all the other races got together to help the human population grow. The history books tell me there was once 7 billion or so. Hard to imagine now, I guess. I haven't seen another human ever. Sure, the werewolves, demons, vampires, and tree folk all look like humans, but they're not humans. It's not their original form. They can all shift into bigger, more powerful beings. The only humans in power now are the royals. And even then, there are councils in place to ensure the power doesn't get to their heads and they don't so spectacularly stupid things. As humans do, I can say this in a completely objective manner, as not only am I human and can recognize and pick out my race's faults, I have also never met another human, so can completely unbiased and objective in my judgment. The history of humans is so interesting and yet so very poignant at the same time. They thought they knew so much, that one person was better than the other, but really they had just forgotten that one person was just like the other, and that's when the humans lost their humanity. And eventually the rest of the human race. I digress. The Fae are awesome. They know how to party, and if you ever need someone to do something illegal in the middle of the night, or even in broad daylight, they were your people. Another benefit of hanging out with Layla was that Jack hated her. The reason why beats me. But right now I'm not complaining. Maybe it was a demon Fae thing, who knows. One thing I do know is that as long as I'm with her, Jack won't come anywhere near. We head out to their wing to catch up on what's been happening in prison. Like prison life was entertaining, it's not. But Layla's had this on and off relationship with the leader of the Fae here. daemon for a long time now and things have just gotten serious. They may actually be considering to call each other boyfriend and girlfriend now. Fae relationships are weird and very wrung out. But I have been told once a fae commits, that's it. They love once but they love unconditionally. Kind of like mates for werewolves, but there's no compulsion and immediate attraction. I'm talking and laughing about her relationship drama, when really my insides have tuned into a zoo. Yes. My stomach skipped butterflies and went straight to a freaking zoo instead, like I need a whole stampede to make feel even more anxious. Surprisingly, I wasn't too anxious about the possibility of seeing Felix. That didn't bother me too much. I was more worried about Jack finding out. Something was telling me that it was going to be soon. When I returned back from the Fae in the early hours of the morning, I saw a letter had been posted, a reply. Already this was astonishingly fast. I had only posted my request yesterday morning. With growing apprehension, I slowly tear the seal away and unfold the letter. Anna, your request has been accepted. Please keep all essentials ready for a night's stay. You will be informed when you are to leave for the tower. Rest well, you will need your energy. The tower tries whosoever attempts to enter. Should you reach the top, knock thrice best of luck. Felix. A letter from Felix himself. That's even more rare than getting a reply within 24 hours. I had of course heard of the infamous tower that supposedly guards Felix and anyone wanting to help him escape, because of how secluded his cell was. Crazy being guarded by a tower, but many said the idea was only as crazy as Felix himself, fighting the bubble of excitement that's threatening to get my adrenaline pumping, and hence not let me get any sleep at night. I change and lay in bed, trying not to think too much about how this trip could effectively change my life for the worse, or even the better. Although this was highly unlikely. I had never done anything like this in my life ever. I hadn't even left the prison. Sure, I don't remember my childhood, but there is no evidence to contradict the fact that I grew up here. This, as weird as it is my kind of normal. I like that. I'm going to do something different for a change. Push the boundaries of my comfort zone to its limits. I fall asleep with a smile on my face, contemplating a new adventure. Unfortunately, my morning is not as peaceful as I am rudely awoken by Jack, whom I'm guessing found out about my little trip. Such a great start to the day, Anna. He all but growls. It's times like this that I think he's a werewolf instead of a demon. Yeah, I mumble sleepily. Please tell me that you're not going to visit Felix. Do you want me to lie to you? Damn it. How could you be so stupid? You've just signed your own death. Listen, Jack. I have a good feeling about this, really. I attempt to reason. Bullshit. When has anyone ever had a good feeling about visiting Felix? It's just something that I have to do. Have to. You don't have to do anything. You want to do it. Is this some kind of sick way of getting back at me for not telling you what's been going on? He shouts while pacing through my room. No. Of course not. Sure, I want to know, but this has nothing to do with that, I don't think. It's hard to explain. It's like I need to go, and when I do, everything will be okay. You do know what you're saying, right? When people go to see Felix and they are lucky enough to come back, they usually don't come back sane. That's an if too. You know as well as I do that most people don't survive the experience, and it's not like we get a body. Nope, it just disappears like they never existed. He's sitting down now, facing me, looking right into my eyes and explaining this really calmly, and honestly I don't know which is worse. The pacing. Pissed off Jack or the calm pissed off Jack? Jack. I know you're upset. Understatement of the freaking century there, Anna. Please, just understand that this is something I have to do. Anna, you have no idea what I'm willing to do to stop you from going. You have no idea. He lowered his head into his trembling hands, sighing. I have some idea, believe me. But you won't do it for me. You'll let me do this. I trust you that much. I reach out and put my hands on his, knowing that right now he needed the comfort. You have too much faith in me, sweetheart. I'm not that nice. He lifts his head, his now inky black eyes staring straight into mine, unrelenting, his voice thick, cloying and gravelly. He takes my hands in his and squeezes. I had never seen him in his demon form. Things only got as far as this, his black as night eyes, but he had never talked to me in that form before. It was endlessly fascinating. Moments later, he blinks and his eyes return to their normal shade of stormy gray, and he lets go of my hands. It's still early. You want to go back to sleep. As soon as he says it, I yawn and snuggle back into my warm, inviting duvet. As I do, I feel the bed dip as Jack too gets into bed. Times like this is where I'm grateful I have a pretty huge bed. He chuckles. I'm taking that as a yes, and until you have to go I'm not letting you out of my sight. Tarfor. When Jack said he's not letting me out of his sight, he meant it. Wholeheartedly. To the extent that I didn't even get to talk to Layla alone, which Jack insisted on sitting there right next to us while Layla ranted at me for being stupid and really Anna. Out of all the stupid, most dangerous things to do on 𝐊𝐲𝐷, you do this one. To which my reply was shrugging non-committally, and not really saying anything. I was packed and ready to go, as the letter advised me to, and Jack kept insisting that I ate way more than I usually do just in case I never received any food for the time I was there. Somehow that seemed unlikely. After all, Felix too would need to eat right. Despite the buzz of me going, I wasn't called to get my things until the next day. At dusk, remember what I told you, okay? The tower is dangerous. There will be many trials and each will be in a different form. I really wish I'd stopped you from doing this now. Jack states, hugging me to within an inch of my life. You be careful out there, chick, I want you back. In one piece and breathing Layla says, her eyes tearing up. I feel like a mother letting go of her baby for the first time. Then she too proceeds to give me a hug that cut off my airways. I wave to them as I'm escorted to the guards area of the prison. My nerves only starting to kick in now, in full force. I'm led to a seat and am told the guard escorting me will be here in a few minutes. I really don't want to wait like this. It seems like now is the worst time to get me to wait. I can only seem to think of the trials and what they would look like, what form they would come in, and how they would try to get under my skin. All the worst possibilities were coming to me, my mind conjuring the hundreds of ways I could die. Death by stabbing, death by poison plunging to death, death by nightmare, death by hallucination, death by I need more. Okay, I had to stop this. It's ridiculous. I'm not going to sit here and wait until I've listed 100 ways in which I could die. No way. Whatever happens in that tower, I was going to defeat it. I was going to go up there and get answers from Felix. So help me, I shall. I'm sure it had been more than a few minutes. Where was my escort? I look around the empty room and notice nobody. Getting up, I try making my way to the main desk where I could usually find someone to help. But it way empty. Why was it empty? It's never empty. I looked around a little more to find the whole place was deserted. This was really odd. Looking around, I made a mental map of my surroundings and went exploring throughout the different rooms, adding to my map as I did so. Why did this seem bigger than it did before? Probably because I'd never had the pleasure of ever exploring these rooms before. Other than the main room, there were a handful of smaller rooms. A meeting room, a small kitchenette dining area, toilets, a living area, office, and a storeroom. Which room then would lead to wherever I would need to go to get to the tower. I guess it's only fair I check out all of them. I give a quick once-over of all the rooms and then check them more thoroughly, finding nothing even remotely out of the ordinary in each. There was no point to this, it's a waste of time. Look for your own door to get to the tower. Out of all the trials I had been imagining, this was probably one of the more tame ones. Like really tame and kind of tame too. I saunter back to the main desk, wondering if I was to hide a door, where the hell would I hide it? I sit on the armchair behind the desk. I'd never seen it from this side before, and by the looks of it I wouldn't be getting into trouble even if I did a little snooping. I surveyed the countertop and saw nothing but paperwork, stationery, and random sticky notes. I opened the drawers to my sides and found nothing unusual here, to my dismay. I was fast running out of options and it was annoying me like mad. I want to get going on my adventure. I want to get answers from Felix, the first one. Oh, hold on a second, inner bratty child. I'm sure that there is more to this desk than you would think. After all, why would it have compartments on the top which have no means of using them? No decorative value, nothing. Unless this was the way to the tower. I searched the side of the desk. The solid block of wood, which should be small drawers for knickknacks, but instead was just being used as a notice board. I removed the notes carefully after reading their contents, just in case they included a clue of some sort. I was beginning to think that maybe I was wrong. Who would put the entrance to the most dangerous criminal in prison in the most obvious place with little to no security? The more I thought about it, actually, the more it made sense. Who would look twice at a desk and think, that leads to the tower? If you didn't know what you were looking for, you'd never know that this was the entrance. Well, if I'd only see some evidence of my theory, I'd be happy. My theory didn't look like it was going to have any proof at the rate these notes were going. They didn't seem to have anything relevant on them, nor were they showing any signs of revealing a secret door. Much to my disappointment, once I had taken everything off, I lightly applied pressure to the panel of bare wood that remained. Seeing as no note was covering a button of some sort, this was the next option. After what seems like an age of pressing, I finally feel the wood give way a little and hear a click. About time. I push a little more and see the panel of wood open further. Inside I see a small bell pull. Of all the things that were hidden in this desk that I could possibly find, this was not what I had expected in the least. Throwing caution to the wind, because what the hell? I've already found a secret compartment in a mundane desk. I give the bell a hard tug and hear nothing. Yeah guys, a soundless bell, because that's normal. I sit on the chair and wait. Suddenly feeling very sleepy. Why am I doing this anyway? I could just turn back and leave. What did it matter? Seeing Felix isn't that big of a deal. What could he tell me that I won't be able to find out myself? This was futile. I should have just listened to Jack and not bothered. I was on the verge of dozing off completely when I heard a faint voice. "Coo in my ear, princess." I jump, looking around only to see the same surroundings. Nobody was here, but I swear that heard that voice. I'm fully alert now, thoughts of wanting to go back to my wing gone completely. That voice was Felix's voice, and the voice from my dream, I'm sure. What I'm not sure of is the insistence in calling me princess, but that was something that I'd have to ask him later, if I ever got to the tower. I look for the bell pull, but the desk seems to have returned to normal. The notes I had taken off having all returned to their place, as if I had never moved anything. I wonder if I have to go through the whole bell pull thing again. I really didn't want to, but if that's what I had to do, I guess I'd have to do it then, wouldn't I? Just as I was about to go through the whole process again, I heard a distant rumbling, getting ever closer, louder and louder, as if a herd of elephants were thundering right towards me. I couldn't move from my spot, even though it felt like they were coming right at me. The thundering got worse, so much so I thought my eardrums would burst. The ground shook, increasing in ferocity with each rumble. Cracks began to appear on the earth, showing signs of splitting. I was afraid that any moment now the ground would finally give way beneath me due to all of the cracks. With a screech and another quake that rocked through me, the ground gave way beneath me. I grappled for the desk as best I could, but to no avail. I was sucked into the hole as if it was a vacuum. Couldn't hear or see a thing as I fell. I'm not even sure I'm falling, only my brain is telling me that that is the only logical thing that could be happening. I awake, but when did I fall asleep? As confused as humanly possible about my surroundings. I slowly get up and dust myself off, looking around everywhere. I'm in a big and barren field, no sign of life, in any form anywhere. I turn around full circle only to see a something in the distance. Knowing that this is probably not the wisest decision to make, but having very little in the way of other strokes of genius, I make my way towards whatever it is in the distance. Single-mindedly, and with that being my sole purpose, I cancel out any thought of hunger, fatigue or thirst. I walk straight toward it with a fierce determination, but no matter how much I walked, it didn't get any closer. I attempted to discern some details of whatever the something was. Certainly seemed tall, like a long building that lead to the sky, almost like a beanstalk. As much as it was a beanstalk, it wasn't at the same time. It was more proper, more set, more like a real building made out of stone, not a plant. Could it be the tower that guards Felix? Could I actually be close now? It was a possibility that I only partially entertained. I didn't exactly want to get myself too excited now, did I? The closer I walked towards it, the more detail I could see. It was getting clearer, more in focus. Unlike before, it was a large shadowy type thing. Not distinctive in the slightest. For all I knew, then it could be nothing more than a plume of smoke. Finally, I had walked up to the tower. It had a very commanding, intimidating presence. Tentatively, I took a small step toward the entrance. The oak door creaked noisily as I slowly pushed them open, as if groaning in protest. It was so difficult to get them to open purely because they were so damn heavy. After a few great pushes, I got the door to open wide enough so I could get through. The inside of the castle is a little odd. It's definitely not what I expected, that's for sure. Instead of being decorated in a deep red with drapes and portraits everywhere, was that popular in the Victorian era? I think so. It was brighter, vivid colors with little in the way of showpieces or wall decorations. I see a large jug of water placed on a table in the middle of the room. As I didn't think anyone else was around today, it was probably left for me, but all the advice that had been drilled into my head left me wary. What if this was some sort of trial? I look around for a tumbler or anything that I could put some water in. I have not idea how many flights of stairs there are. And maybe it would be better to take small sips throughout my journey, so even if it was a trial I wouldn't be as affected. With that sound logic in mind, I had a look around and found a small bottle in which I could pour some water. Once filled, I begin my journey up the stairs with much trepidation. I wonder how many flights of stairs there are in this place. 24, a few more steps till the 25th. Gosh, this was taking forever. I was trying so hard not to think about the ache in my legs, my intense breathlessness, the incredibly huge urge to just sit there and curl up in a ball forever unfit much. I clearly wasn't doing a very good job of it, seeing as I was thinking about it now. I really hoped there were no more stairs to climb as my legs were turning into jelly. My theory of the water being drugged was true. I had only taken a few sips and yet I felt like a truck had made a collision with my head. I had placed the bottle on a landing some flights back, my walk resembling that of a zombie at the moment, the energy having been zapped out of me. It was then, as I turned to face the 27th landing, that I saw an imposing wooden door. Without hesitation, I knocked thrice and moments later I was entering Felix's lair. Tar 5 suffice to say. Whatever I was expecting when I reached here was nothing like what I'm actually seeing. You know that feeling? The one where you're not entirely convinced that something is actually happening because you always thought the chances of it happening were pretty damn slim. Yeah, that one. What's it called again? Oh, that's right, surreal. This is so freaking surreal. I'm here in what is clearly Felix's place, except it looks nothing like I'd expect it to. Even though outwings were adapted to ensure that we had everything we need to survive in them, we still knew that they were not our homes. Sure, those of us who had grown up in them deluded ourselves into thinking they were our homes, but deep down we knew they weren't. We knew this was a prison. But the thing about Felix's room is that, well, this was nothing like a prison at all. This looked like a home. It had a roaring fire with thick, fluffy rugs and comfy-looking leather chairs right beside it. A library, a kitchen, it all looked amazing. A doorway that presumably led to a bedroom and bathroom. If our prison was as comfy-looking as Felix's room, maybe I wouldn't complain as much, but I'd probably get lonely. Done staring, a voice startles me out of my reverie. I look up to see a middle-aged man. Maybe, or he may just be any number of the creatures that don't age as fast as humans do, which leaves the matter of his age a very wide spectrum. I look at his face and see the very face that appeared in my dream, or was it his voice? Either way, I discover that this dude has somehow, in whatever form, made it in my dreams. How did you get in my dream, I asked, forgoing all other curtsies like hi or how are you. You know, stuff normal people would say as a greeting. Thankfully, he doesn't try to put some random hex on that'll turn me into a frog out of offense, but he simply laughs. Princess, you are too impatient, all will be revealed in time. He leads me into the kitchen area. Are you hungry? He asks and promptly pulls out numerous dishes from the oven. I have been awaiting your arrival. We have a busy night. There is much you need to know and not enough time for me to tell you. Eat up, you will need your energy. Embarrassingly, as soon as my eyes see the food, my stomach rumbles loudly, reminding me that I haven't had any food for at least a day. Instead of laughing at me, Felix simply hands me a plate and my cutlery, and I dig in shamelessly. Despite the tower's reputation and Felix's seemingly shady character, I feel at ease here, and have more of a sense of home than I have ever remembered having since, well, forever really. It was extremely odd that of all places here was where I felt at ease, but instead of overanalyzing why I feel this way, I'm just going to savor the feeling that I belong without digging too deep. After all, Felix promised me some answers tonight, and maybe this might be one of them. Once we had eaten, I was led into the library and handed the most amazingly aromatic cup of coffee, and was almost salivating at the mere smell. This better not disappoint my taste buds. You must have many questions, Anna, and tonight I shall attempt to answer all of them for you. But first I must tell you a story, one which you must pay great heed. It was written a long time ago, when the humans ruled Earth and my people were still in hiding. There was once a young king, who showed great promise for the humans even in his teens, who showed great wisdom and was just to all. His people loved him, for he took his duties seriously and invested greatly in his land and people. When the time of his marriage came, many came to offer their daughter hand in marriage. However, the king refused each and every offer and took over the crown alone. For many years he remained alone, and his people grew worried, as the king they once knew was becoming bitter. his moods ever-changing. It was one day when the king went hunting that he came across a scared and injured young woman. She was bleeding severely and was on the verge of unconsciousness. The king immediately called for the royal doctor, and she was placed into his care. A month later, the young woman had fully recovered from her injuries and was able to inform the king of everything that had happened to her. She told him of how, by some amazing stroke of luck, she had managed to escape a great and powerful warlock who had wished to forcibly marry her. She had been imprisoned for a little over a week and was purposely given less food and water so she would weaken. On the day of her escape, the warlock had urgent business to attend. In this urgency, he had left the door the woman was usually locked in. Unlocked, she saw this opportunity and fled. What she had not accounted for was the many enchantments that the warlock had cast that would hinder the woman's way as she left. It was here she was hurt, and her injuries only worsened when the warlock had discovered she had left, or he had followed her, throwing hex upon hex in her direction. It was only on sheer willpower that she had managed to reach as far as the king's hunting grounds, which the warlock could not enter, for he knew to trespass was to earn a certain painful death. Angered that she was now under the king's protection, the warlock left and bided his time. As the woman made her way on the journey of recovery, she also captured the king's heart, and the young couple soon found themselves inseparable. After a short and beautiful courtship, the king asked the young woman for her hand in marriage. She accepted, and the king threw lavish banquets for a week for all his people in celebration. Years passed, and the happy couple were overjoyed with the arrival of a baby boy, and a few years later twin girls. The kingdom was prosperous, and both the monarch and their people were living in peace. Nobody had given a once of thought to the warlock they had angered. It was only on the celebration of the young princess's second birthday that the warlock made his appearance in the middle of the celebration, just as the young princesses were about to bite into the cake. The warlock cursed it. Only when the princesses had eaten the cake had the warlock made his presence known. Woe to the foolish monarch, woe to the selfish queen. I have cursed your children for your actions, and neither will surpass the age of 16. He called as the king, quickly regaining from his horror, ordered the guards to capture him. The warlock was detained and the children assessed by the royal doctor. They were in perfect physical shape. However, everyone was all too aware of how the curse would only affect them at the age of 16 and no sooner. The king and queen were distraught and were frantically looking for a manner in which the curse could be weakened, if not outright destroyed. Their search led them to the highest mountains. The most deadliest cliff faces, every nook and cranny of earth was searched high and low for some sort of cure. It was only after the king had returned home, distraught at his lack of findings, that he was mysteriously summoned to the crumbling remains of a once grand church. The king, curious and at a point in which he would do anything to help his children, went to the church. Against all his court's wishes, once he arrived, he was met by an old man who had a long white beard and shaggy hair. The man looked as if he had seen many things in life, all of which were terrible. He approached the king and muttered the following words that would haunt the king for the rest of his life. Your daughters can only be saved if they do not remember who they are. The curses will have no effect on them, but you must choose now. I can wipe their memory for you, and you can no longer have them in your life. I will loose my children forever. No. Once the danger of the curse has passed, they will face a great decision. If they choose the right path, they will regain their memory. This is my gift to you, just king. You will get your children back, but you must be patient. The journey will not be easy. What is your decision? Wipe their memories. It is their only means of survival. I will make my queen understand it is done. They will sleep while you make arrangements for them. They will no longer remember you or their life at the palace. They cannot be placed together. The further away the better. Thank you, muttered the king as he walked away with a heavy heart, knowing that this night would be the longest of his life. Once he arrived at the palace, he gathered all his most trusted advisors and guards. There the night had been spent making some of the hardest decisions of his life. The queen was inconsolable, but even she too realized that this was the only manner in which her children would survive. The children had left that very morning, each to their own new life, having no recollection of the lives they had left behind. According to legend, these children are out there somewhere across the galaxy, unknowingly waiting for the opportunity to regain their memory and begin their journey home. just as the king and queen were waiting for their 2 daughters to arrive back home. That's a really nice story. But it's just a story and there's not really much of a happy ending, is there? I say, letting out a big yawn. We had moved to the cozy library area with couches that almost swallowed you whole. Fortunately for Felix, even though I knew that I should question him to an inch of his life, I no longer had the ability to do so. Neither did I have the ability to listen anymore, and anything he was saying just turned into mush in my head. Look, Felix, the first yawn again. I'm sorry, but I really don't have another yawn. 𝐊𝐤𝐳 to concentrate on anything you're saying. I can only let you sleep on one condition, which is, I ask, although in my current frame of mind I'd say yes to pretty much anything. You have to agree to stay here another night. Is that it? Sure, I agree. Quickly, and allow myself to drift off into the most peaceful slumber I've had in a very long time. If only every night's sleep can be as epic as this past night. I didn't have any nightmares, and for once in a very long time I actually slept through the whole night, instead of waking up randomly in a cold sweat and then taking another few hours just to get back to bed again. I'm guessing Felix had put me in this bed whilst I slept sometime. The bed itself was amazingly comfortable, covered in furs and blankets of the softest kind. I wish I could stay here forever. It would be amazing, and oddly, I don't have the slightest qualm in staying here with Felix despite the reputation. But I know I'm here for a reason, and as much as I would like to stay, I had people in the prison that I would very much like to see again. With that thought in mind, I reluctantly clambered out of bed and followed the incredible smell of food cooking toward the kitchen. Felix, ever the gracious host, presented me with food before allowing me to ask any questions. I wasn't even sure what to ask. I just wanted to know what the hell was going on, how I was involved, and why everyone thinks that it should be kept such a big secret. So that's where I started, much to Felix's amusement and my annoyance. He took his time answering and sipped his coffee like it wasn't his third in the past hour. My patience was wearing thin, but I had to remind myself that this was his domain, and even though he was a very gracious host, the tables could turn at a moment's notice. You are very impatient, but you hide it well. It is a good trait. Never show anyone what you are truly feeling. They can use it to their advantage. The business of the prophecy I cannot tell you. You must know that it is in regards to you. You are an essential part, and yet you do not know it. It will aid you well. Follow your gut. You already know what to do. Just have confidence in yourself and do not trust all that you meet. Your dreams will guide you. But I understand how obscure they can be, so try not to overanalyze them, for you will understand them when it matters most. Don't panic. Never lose your head in front of anyone. Remember the wise king's story. My child, you will need it later now. Sleep and you will find yourself back on 𝐊𝐤𝐳. Unwillingly, I begin to fall asleep at his command, confused and overwhelmed by his advice, which seemed like a bunch of quotes strung together, and that story was more than a little odd. It was neither a happy ending nor a sad one. What kind of legend was that? And why did it seem like the ending was half written? Why did it seem like there was more?